We're a few games into the Denver Summit FC season, and we're starting to see how the team is taking shape on the pitch. Joining us now to talk about the Summit is CBS Sports soccer writer who knows all things NWSL, Sandra Herrera. So, Sandra, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate your time.
I'm excited to be here. Happy to chat all things Summit with you.
Well, let's get started. What do you think about Denver Summit FC from what you've seen so far?
Well, they're one of two expansion teams coming into the league this year alongside Boston Legacy. And I got to say, I'm a little bit more impressed with how they're kind of taking their first steps in the league in their inaugural season so far. What you could see is that they're building, still searching for that first win, but 2-1 loss to a 1-1 draw, slowly but surely they're chipping away.
Slowly but surely, that is the key. How hard is it, though, to win it all as an expansion team?
It's very difficult. You know, the bar has been set a little bit higher in more recent years. I think oftentimes in the past, you take a look at expansion teams that have come into NWSL, whether we're throwing it all the way back to 2015 and 2016 for Houston Dash or Orlando Pride. And it's taken them quite some time to sort of get to the top of the mountain. But Orlando Pride coming off of a 2024 championship themselves, we saw San Diego Wave make playoffs in their inaugural season and kind of chip away and get back into the postseason as well, along with Angel City kind of showing that they can compete. So the bar has risen over the last decade or so in NWSL. And so there's a little bit of expectations for teams to make sure that they kind of show up and show out when they finally get here. So I think for Denver, in terms of the battle of expansion sides, they're kind of leading the race a little bit. They're showing that they're ambitious and they're here to compete.
I love that. Well, as you mentioned, this isn't the only expansion team. So I'm curious, how do you see the Summit and those other expansion teams stacking up against those other clubs that you said are also raising the bar?
Yeah, they've got a little ways to go, right? They're only two games old in their NWSL history. But the fact that they're kind of keeping toe-to-toe with other teams that have kind of showed up themselves. They had that narrow loss to Bay FC, who just found themselves as an expansion franchise, but getting on the scoreboard was very, very important. Got to show that you can score against NWSL squads here, and then to kind of hold the former champions in Orlando Pride to a 1-1 draw. Those are kind of the growing pains. Those are kind of the learning curves there to go up a goal, but then unfortunately concede over the course of 90 minutes. I think it's an important and good start for the Summit so far. You want to show that you're not going to be this sort of team that doesn't know what it's like to play in this league, even though you're sort of learning a little bit how to play with each other as a newly formed roster.
Well, it's an exciting time, especially with this Saturday being the Summit's first home game, and I am just blown away by this. It has sold more than 50,000 tickets, which would actually beat the current NWSL record for attendance. Are you surprised by this?
I can't say that I am. Just having been someone who sort of seen where this league has started to where it is now, if you build it, they will come, right? And I love that Denver Summit and their group have sort of leaned into that mantra quite a bit. They know that this was going to be a very monumental thing for the Denver community. They had a lot of local buy-in, I believe, from the start, and it's reflected in these numbers, right? The math doesn't lie. And when you look at something like 50-something thousand tickets, that's going to really blow your mind. That is like out of this world. These are numbers that leagues and teams, not just in the United States, but leagues across the globe, look to and want to achieve for their own clubs. And we're talking about some iconic, teams across the globe, whether they're Barcelona or Arsenal or Chelsea. These are clubs that want to see those numbers as well. So the fact that a club in its inaugural season is sort of showing off that they can kind of pull these kinds of numbers, it's a massive accomplishment for the club.
Well, Sandra, you've been covering the NWSL for some time, so I'm curious, what do you think about coverage as the growth of the league has changed? Why do you think that's also happening?
I mean, audiences are tuning in. And the more audiences are tuning in, the more they want to learn about their team or their favorite player on the team. They want to see those stories and follow those highlights. And so they're going to be seeking out all of the coverage. They're going to be, tapping into CBS Colorado to make sure that Denver Summit, what's next for them and what are the moves and what are the wins and what are maybe even the losses, with the bad and the good of coverage of a team. So I'm very, very pleased with where the coverage is going, because it still has a ways to go, because women's sport is also still growing, and as women's sport also still grows, so does the coverage. So I'm looking forward to the continued evolution of that as well.
Well, we are also looking forward to seeing so many of the hometown girls, if you will, taking to the pitch. We want it to happen, but what do you think are the odds of more Coloradans coming home like Lindsay Heaps?
Gosh, what a signing. I think that was maybe one of the ones that really kind of was a little bit of a flag waving in a way that's saying, come on through to Denver Summit. We're building something special here. They're showing that they want to attract world-class talent, and just so happens that they've got a lot of that world-class talent that happen to be Colorado local. So Heaps is one of them. I wouldn't be surprised if, as they continue to build, they have that resume to sort of have as part of their player pitch, and that'll include the resources, that'll include the facilities and all of those things that they could say, hey, look at what we're providing for our players, so we can provide that for you here at the Summit. And that includes getting somebody like Lindsay Heaps in year one of their build. And so if you can attract that type of talent, more will come.
All right, well, let's name drop just a little bit more. We have Sophia Wilson, Mallory Swanson, to name a couple. What do you think it would take to get them here?
Well, obviously a good contract would help that, but I think the continued success of the club, I think, is going to be a big thing. You hear a lot of times for players that they are often intrigued about the concept of building something from the ground up, but they're also competitors. These are athletes. They want to compete for titles and trophies, and you want to build something, and that's very heartwarming. But at the same time, you want to win some trophies. You want to win the titles. So you want to maybe try to see that this team continues to build over the course of a very long season. It's a 30-game match season. So, of course, I think if you are a Colorado native, you're looking at that contract situation with Sophia Wilson, who's only on 1 year remaining with Portland Thorns. And of course, you're like wishing against, all wishes that maybe she comes on home. But I have to say, I mean, a new mom, maybe that is something that is intriguing to, there's no place like home. So maybe that is going to be part of those angles that they try to push. But you got to make it worth it. You got to make it appealing, right? So
yep.
2.5 games in, we'll see how Denver continue to build and how they can continue to pitch themselves to high-profile players like that.
Well, Summit fans can certainly keep their fingers crossed. Sandra, we can't thank you enough for your time. Thank you. You can keep up with her and all things NWSL by visiting cbssports.com.